Matt DiBenedetto says he'll entertain anything, including the Xfinity Series for the 2022 season, and Cody Ware mentions that Ware Racing is planning to downsize to 2 full-time Cup Series cars for the 2022 season. What's going on, guys? It's Daniel, and welcome back to our video. We have quite a few NASCAR stories to discuss here today on the channel. Well, let's go and just jump straight into those very, very quickly. We're going to start off with Matt Weber, as Matt Weber will be the new crew chief for Ryan Truex. Matt Weber's already made a start this year as a crew chief for Ryan Truex at Watkins Glen. And I think Ryan Truex had a decent run at Watkins Glen. I'm not exactly sure how well he ran, but I think they're doing a little bit of crew chief changes to kind of help Ryan Truex. He's kind of struggled so far this year. We all thought Ryan Truex coming into this year was going to run a little bit better than he has, and unfortunately, he hasn't really had that great of year. A lot of it, though, has been mechanical problems for Ryan Truex. I don't know how much crew chief experience Matt Weber's had in the past, but maybe he'll be able to help Ryan Truex out. I'm not exactly sure how he's going to do with Ryan Truex for next year, but overall, wishing the best of luck to Matt Weber this year, and hopefully he'll help Ryan Truex run a little better than he has, because they've kind of struggled. Like I said, a lot of people thought that he's going to run, and he also had to look at performances that Carson Osbar's had this year, where he's going to be in the playoffs this year, and Ryan Truex is not in the playoffs this year. So hopefully he'll help out Ryan Truex throughout the next 7 races of the season. Hopefully they'll finish out better than they have throughout this year, because he's kind of struggled here in the 2021 season. And now we're going to go and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about Joseph Kaim. As Joseph Kaim is going to be suspended for 1 race after an incident that happened in the events at Watkins Glen. Joseph Kaim is a crew chief for Alex Labbe, and if you remember during that race, there was a caution that came up for a rear axle that fell off Alex Labbe's car. Alex Labbe had not been running that well anyways. He usually runs really well at road courses. He was not having a very good run, and the reason was due to a rear axle falling off the car, and because that went off the racetrack, they are going to suspend Joseph Kaim for that. Like I said, he is a crew chief, so I'm not exactly sure who's going to be the crew chief for Alex Labbe going to this weekend at the Indianapolis road course. It is unfortunate to see that did happen, because if the axle falls off on the track, it could injure somebody, and I think they're making the right call right here to overall suspend him. Again, it is what it is. We've seen a couple drivers get suspended, and crew chiefs get suspended for situations like this. So I think they're making the right call overall, in my honest opinion, on that. And hopefully we'll see Joseph Kaim back in a couple weeks in Michigan, because the next time he'll be back is at Michigan. So hopefully we'll see Joseph Kaim back really soon, and hopefully we'll get to see him really soon out on the racetrack. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we are talking about Colin Garrett. As Colin Garrett will be driving the 26th for Sam Hunt Racing in multiple races for the rest of the year, including at Michigan in a couple weeks, and then he'll be racing also at Daytona as well. Colin Garrett has made 8 starts so far for Sam Hunt Racing last year in 2020, where he has some decent runs. I think he got some top 15s and some top 20 races. Colin Garrett also used to race for him, I believe, in the what it used to be called the K&N Series, but now it's the ARCA E Series. So he's had quite a few starts for this team overall. I believe is also the first driver that ever drove for this organization when they were starting up. So they're bringing Colin Garrett back to race in a few select starts. Honestly, I think Colin Garrett will have some decent runs with this team. The Sam Hunt Racing organization, especially with Toyota backing, I think that they have a really good opportunity of finishing in the top 15 and top 20 in these races as well. We've seen Santino Ferrucci run really well with this team. We saw Chris Wright have a pretty decent run overall with them, I think, this past weekend at Watkins Glen. We've seen Brandon Dovick not run that great. We've also seen Will Rogers run a couple races, and we're also seeing him run 2 cars this weekend in Indianapolis road course with a couple of really good drivers, including Will Rogers. And like I said, we saw them run really well in Nashville with Will Rogers. So I think that this is a really good addition overall, bringing Colin Garrett back to the team, someone they started with at the beginning of their career. Again, it's really good to see that they've changed up and run a lot of different drivers. I think it's cool to see that. They've had also John Hunter Nemechek, who was running really well at Dover before they had mechanical problems. They were running top 10 a lot of that race before the mechanical problems kind of hit that organization. So it's really cool to see that they're bringing Colin Garrett back into the NASCAR Xfinity Series to run a few select races, and I'm wishing him best luck. And I think, honestly, I think there's potential top 15 and top 20 runs coming for the organization, and hopefully they'll run really well at these upcoming races. And I would assume he's probably going to run more races than just these 2, but I'm not exactly sure, to be honest with you. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we are talking about Loris Hezemans. As Loris Hezemans will be driving the number 33 for Raymond Brothers Racing this weekend at the Indianapolis road course. For a lot of you who don't know Loris Hezemans has made 1 or 2 select Xfinity Series starts this year. Didn't run that great because he drove for MBM Motorsports. I think Raymond Brothers had a little bit of a say in what was going on there. But we're going to see Loris Hezemans back at the Indianapolis road course. Like I said, Loris Hezemans has ran in the NASCAR Wheel and Euro Series, and actually, I believe, won the championship last year for them, and now he's making another start in the NASCAR Xfinity Series this weekend. Loris Hezemans, I think, will surprise a lot of people this weekend, especially if he's able to qualify in, because remember, this car will have to qualify, and I think this is a new car for the team, so they're going to have to qualify, unless they got the owner's points from the other cars that they have ran. They're going to have to qualify in this weekend, but I do think that Loris Hezemans has a really good shot of qualifying in this weekend, considering he has a lot of road course experience, and he's been really, really fast on other types of tracks as well. If he's able to qualify into the event, which I think he has a really good shot of qualifying into the event, I wouldn't be surprised if this car runs top 20 or top 25. I really believe in Loris Hezemans. I think the guy has potential to do a lot of great things, especially if he runs a few select starts. Again, the Rain Brothers organization, they're not really, really fast, to be perfectly honest with you, but I do think that Loris Hezemans has a good shot of running well, getting them their best run they've ever had in regards to whatever series they've ran. I think they have a really good shot of running extremely well. I'm wishing him the best of luck overall, and good luck, Loris Hezemans, this week, and hope he's able to qualify him for the organization and is able to get a really good run for the team. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we are talking about Chandler Smith. As Chandler Smith, after the Truck Series race concluded, was DNQ'd for ride height situations. He got last place points and last place payout as well. Now, the good news is for your Chandler Smith fans, he will still be locked into the playoffs. I believe he had a 10 or 9 put cushion after getting DQ'd. Remember, Chandler Smith only scored 19 points in a Truck Series race. He absolutely struggled in that event, but it will not affect the playoff cut line at all. Tyler Earkham is still eliminated from getting a shot to run at the playoffs, and Chandler Smith is locked into the grid. Again, I'm not sure how I feel about the ride height rule situation. I don't think the Cup Series has the ride height rule situation where if you don't have the set amount of ride heights for the Truck Series, you're going to get DNQ'd. It's really unfortunate because Chandler Smith absolutely struggled. They kind of broke early in the race after the crash on the first lap where John Nemechek basically sent it into the corner. It really wasn't his fault that that situation happened. I mean, it's really not an advantage having the ride height rules, so it is what it is. Chandler Smith didn't really run that great anyways in the event. He had a lot of momentum coming in his event after a really strong run at the Knoxville Truck Series race. But Chandler Smith, man, I mean, you know, it is what it is. Hopefully this doesn't, because this also is going to affect this, I believe this, I'm not sure, does this affect starting position? So I do think that the top 10 guys in the playoffs will start up front in the race. So he'll probably start last of the playoff drivers. Again, he'll probably start in the top 10 because, again, how they reconfigured, I think they're doing it very similar. I'm not exactly sure, but Chandler Smith getting DNQ'd is really, really frustrating for those Chandler Smith fans, including myself. I like Chandler Smith a lot, and this is definitely going to be a little bit of a momentum killer for the team, even though they did not run it really well at Watkins Glen. It's going to be kind of a momentum killer for the organization overall. So like I said, it's really, really frustrating to see that Chandler Smith was DNQ'd, and hopefully this doesn't kill the momentum going into Gateway, because again, I do think that Chandler Smith will run really well at Gateway. He does have a lot of experience there, and I do think KBM will run really well in that event as well, especially John Nemechek, who has a lot of experience at that track. And again, it's really frustrating to see that Chandler Smith is not even going to have an opportunity to, you know, fix the situation because, again, they were DNQ'd after the event. But again, the good news, like I said, is that this does not affect the opportunity to go in the playoffs. So like I said, it's really, really unfortunate, but it is what it is, and we move on to Gateway for the Truck Series as well. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about NASCAR and Supercars. It was reported yesterday by Adam Stern that NASCAR's France family has dropped out of the running to buy the Repco Supercars series, suggesting it had kicked the tires on the deal, which is being shopped by multiple bidders. For those of you who know what the Repco Supercars series, I believe that is the V8 Supercar series. I believe that's the big Supercar series that take place in Australia, where we've seen a lot of drivers like Scott McLaughlin and Marcus Ambrose go over and race and contend and win championships over there as well. NASCAR has been trying to buy, I think, up as many series as possible. Remember, they bought ARCA not too long ago, back in 2017 or 2018, and they really took full acquisition about 2 or 3 years ago, but unfortunately, ARCA has been affected by that. It would have been really cool to see NASCAR a little bit abroad. I think NASCAR has been trying to go over there and bring abroad, and maybe if NASCAR was to buy it, maybe they could bring NASCAR over to the United States and run some Supercars races as well. I've watched some of the Supercar races in the past, and I've really enjoyed it. But I do think NASCAR is overall dropping out. I think makes a lot of sense for the series as well, to kind of just focus on the series they have, because again, I think that some, especially in the Cup Series, there are things that they can fix overall for NASCAR going forward at the moment. And to me, I think that this is the right decision overall, because again, if you're going to focus on so many series, you're going to run into a lot of different problems. Again, you do have a lot of branches of people that are in those respective series, and you do actually have some NASCAR V8 Supercross. I think there's a little bit of, actually I don't think there is, because I think Penske dropped out of the Dick Johnson group. So it really is unfortunate NASCAR's dropped out of it, but I think it's going to be overall the right call for them. And we'll have to see what happens going forward as well in that situation. But NASCAR has dropped out of the running to buy the Repco Supercar Series at this particular moment. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the first of two major stories of today's episode, as we're talking about Ware Racing. Cody Ware was racing this past weekend at the National Street Course. He was not competing in the NASCAR Cup Series race. I believe R.C. Anderson was substituting for him in that event. But Cody Ware was at the National Street Course, and Dave Land, another fellow YouTuber here on the YouTube side of things, basically spoke to Cody Ware about what the plan is for Ware Racing going into 2022. And what Cody Ware mentioned is that Ware Racing is planning to have one or two cars. Again, that is for the Indianapolis 500. But he also mentioned that they are looking to have only one or two cars, and they're looking to downsize for the 2022 season to be a little bit more competitive. Ware said about a week or two ago that they were planning to downsize next year to be a little bit more competitive going into next year. The first thing I have to say about it is if Ware is being serious about this. Here's the thing. If they think that they're going to go from being a 35th place team most weeks to being a top 10 team, I do think that that is a little bit of a stretch. I think if they're going to go the Spire Motorsports route and go from being like a 30th place team to maybe like a top 25 team, I could absolutely see that. And I think that this overall is the right call for Ware to focus only on two cars. I think, one, they'll be a lot more competitive as an organization. I think this putting focus on two cars, especially with your IndyCar program, your IMSA program, even your Penny Series program now, compared to focusing on other programs, I think this will be the right decision for them as well. The other big question I have right now is who are the drivers going to be? What are they going to do in regards to their driver department? The two drivers, first one, I absolutely think that's going to end up at Ware Racing next year full-time, and I think that this actually be the right call. I think it's going to be James Davison. James Davison, I think, has been really, really fast, especially on some of these road course racetracks. I think the equipment has affected him, but I've seen him run really well in iRacing, and I've also seen him run well in really good equipment. 2017, for example, in the 20 car, drove for Joe Gibbs Racing, ran really well in that event. And I think James Davison has a lot of talent, has shown what he's been able to do in select NASCAR races, and he doesn't seem to be bothering everybody, gets out of the way when he's possible. And if you put him in a really competitive car, especially on the road course races, I think that you would see a very, very competitive James Davison. He'd be contending for top 20s at least for sure, and maybe some top 10 as well if you had a really, really competitive Ware car. The other big question is, who gets the second ride for Ware Racing next year? Who's the other driver that they pick? I mean, you have Matt DiBenedetto who could be on the sidelines to bring in, but I'll be honest, I think the second driver is going to be someone that's already in the Ware Racing group. Maybe J.J. Yeley, but again, J.J. Yeley is a lot older driver. That's a driver I choose because remember, he ran really well at the National Super Speedway track, ran extremely well in that event. But I'll be honest, I think J.J. Yeley being such an older driver, being about 45 or 46 years old, I think he's a little bit too old to maybe get an opportunity to race. So I do think that they're either going to choose Cody Ware or Josh Bilicki. I'm leaning more to Josh Bilicki because Cody Ware has basically been running IndyCar. And if I had to be in my honest opinion, he did run okay until the end of the race yesterday at the National Street Course, National GP. I would honestly choose Josh Bilicki, though, because I think Josh Bilicki, in my opinion, he is a talented driver. He's ran well and not the best equipment overall. He's run really well with the SS Greenlight cars, which has Ware Association. He's ran top 10 and top 15 with those cars. And we've seen them run and when they have SS Greenlight, run really fast. I like to see Josh Bilicki get a better opportunity as well. If you give him a better Ware Racing car, I think they'd run much, much better. But again, if Ware thinks it, like I said, back to Ware, if they think that they're going to overall go from being like a really, really slow team to being a really fast team right away, yes, they may be a little bit faster. Next-gen car might help them overall because remember, the next-gen car is coming next year, and Ware has said that they want to be a little more competitive once the next-gen car comes out. If they're going to be a little bit more competitive, I don't have a problem with that. I think if they are going to try to make their stuff a little bit better, I've got no problem with that. We see what DiBenedetto will do in IndyCar. I know they have Dale Coyne association with that. We've seen Romain Grosjean run really well with the team. We've seen Pietro Fittipaldi run really well with the team at points on the ovals. So why not? If they want to go downsize a little bit to go to two cars and run a little more competitive in the Cup Series, why not? And, I think it's the right call, in my opinion, if they're going to downsize. I think it'll be much better for NASCAR, too. The other big question is the charter market as well. It's another big question that gets popped up, is what happens to the charter market with some of the teams that are looking to expand. I think the two teams that are really in the question to get those charters right now for Ware Racing is GMS Racing and 2311 Racing. 2311 Racing says they want to expand. Right now, currently at the moment, Kurt Busch is the most likely to go to 2311 Racing. But I think if they want to be really, really competitive right away with them, they're going to have to get a charter. And I think that they could be the first team. I think they're for sure going to get one of the charters from Ware Racing next year. And I think they will have Kurt Busch drive for them. The other one, GMS. GMS doesn't have a lot of the funds to back them up. If they spend a lot of their money and focus on getting that charter, they would be, because they are going to Cup next year. They've not announced they're going full-time or part-time. We're supposed to know that really, really soon at some point. I'm not exactly sure when they're going to announce that, but they are planning to go to Cup at some point next year. And to me, if you're that organization, GMS, you need to get a charter if you want to be really, really competitive, because there's been reports that have come out that said that a lot of the non-charter teams, they're really not in a lot of those meetings to get a lot of stuff, and their last couple teams get behind. NBA Motorsports said that they're kind of like a little behind on getting their stuff as well. So I do think if they are to get the charters, I think that goes to 2311 and GMS Racing if they get to. Maybe 2311 ends up buying both charters. I know people have mentioned Junior Motorsports, but Junior Motorsports, and Kelly Lohar mentioned a couple weeks ago that they are not planning on going to Cup until 2023, especially with it being $10 million for the upfront cost. We know 2311 Racing has money. Does GMS get the other charter is the big question right now. But Ware Racing downsizing is definitely interesting. We'll have to follow this story up as time goes on really, really soon. And now we're going to jump on to the final major story of today's episode, as we are talking about Matt DiBenedetto. Now, Matt DiBenedetto was speaking to media, including Davey Siegel from Freshers, Davey Center on Twitter, and he talked about what his plans were for next year. Matt DiBenedetto basically clarified what his plans for next year. He says he will entertain anything, including the NASCAR Xfinity Series for next year. He reiterated that he wants to finish the last 14 races on a good note. Now, remember, Matt DiBenedetto did mention he really did not want to go back to Xfinity Series originally and basically wanted to stay in the Cup Series full time. But with a lot of teams getting bought up and a lot of teams currently filling up for next year, Matt DiBenedetto has retracted his statement, and he says he may go down to the Xfinity Series next year. Now, let's talk about the Cup brands that could be available for Matt DiBenedetto if he is to stay into Cup next year. There really are not that many rides available. He could go to College Racing next year, but they said that if they're going to go full-time with the second car, they are going to need the funding to go full-time. We know AJ Allmendinger is going to be running part-time with the team next year. Maybe Casper also going to go over there as well. But that car may not, because Matt DiBenedetto, like I said, he doesn't have a lot of funding to back him up. And I think that you're going to need a lot of funding to go over to College Racing, especially, again, they got a lot of funding going for them. GMS Racing is the other team. Only other team I think about that he could go to next year. Maybe Front Row Motorsports, but I feel like Michael McDowell and Anthony Alfredo are going to return next year. Maybe Gaunt Brothers Racing, but again, they probably going to choose someone in the Toyota development program or someone to bring up there, or maybe other drivers like Ty Dillon to go there as well. The only other team I really think about right now is GMS Racing, especially if they're going to buy a charter. If they are to be a team that does end up buying charter from Ware Racing, I've really thought maybe GMS. GMS does have a little bit of that Chevy back, and they probably have a little bit of money to back them up as well. But if he goes to the Xfinity Series, he has quite a few options available for him. Team Penske's off the market because Team Penske, they're looking to probably only have Cup Series drivers drive. Again, maybe he could run part-time with that team. But Team Penske's basically dropped their association with him. The team I really think about that he could go to, especially in the NASCAR Xfinity Series, is definitely going to be College Racing. We know 100% for sure AJ Allmendinger is going to be running full-time with the team next year for a couple of years in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. They're looking for him to win a championship next year. But there's going to be rides opening up at College Racing next year. You have Justin Haley. He's going to be going full-time to the Cup Series next year. We're not really sure what's going to be going on with Jeb Burr next year. A lot of people think that there's a really good chance that he could go again full-time next year. And they said they maybe they're at least going to have 2 full-time cars next year for college. But we can see maybe 3 or 4 full-time cars for the NASCAR Xfinity Series as well. And to me, I think that this would be the perfect place for Matt DiBenedetto to go. Maybe replace and go into the 11. I know that a lot of people bring up Kaz Grala, and if I had to choose, I put Kaz Grala in one of the cars immediately. Maybe Sheldon Creed is another driver in running for that College Racing car as well. A lot of people think he may go to Junior Motorsports next year as well. But if I had to choose, I put Matt DiBenedetto in a College Racing car if he is to go back down to the Xfinity Series next year. College Racing is a really, really competitive team. I think he'd be really, really fast. I think he honestly would be in a much better position than he has been at Wood Brothers Racing. You look at some of his recent stats in the Cup Series this year, he's been running a lot better, more consistent. Ever since they made that crew chief change to put Jonathan Hassler full-time with Wood Brothers this year, he's been a lot more competitive. And I think if you put him in a pretty competitive car with College Racing, they've been a team that's been on the rise in NASCAR Xfinity Series, and now they're going up the Cup next year. I think Matt DiBenedetto, in my opinion, would definitely be the perfect option and the perfect fit to go to this team next year. I think if he is to go back down to Xfinity next year, he also could reassemble stuff, go to John Henry Nemechek route. John Henry Nemechek wasn't really competitive in Cup, but went back down to the Truck Series, and he has been arguably the best driver in the Truck Series this year, contending for the championship this year. If Matt DiBenedetto goes back to the Xfinity Series, I think that he will do very, very well. I really think he'll contend for wins. I think he could win some super speedway races. We've seen how well he's been on super speedway tracks. We've all seen the call cars run fast on 1.5 mile tracks. Tracks like Las Vegas, where AJ Allmendinger, I keep mentioning him. He was able to win at Las Vegas for them, and Matt DiBenedetto historically has been really good at Las Vegas. Look at his stats at a track. He's been really, really fast. So to me, if I had to choose where Matt DiBenedetto is going to go if he doesn't go back to Cup next year, I think he goes to Kaulig Racing. Now, I still think that there is a very potentially decent possibility he goes back to Cup full-time, but I think that his options are going to be really, really limited next year. So to me, if I'm Matt DiBenedetto, I need to be thinking about going back to Xfinity if I can. He did say he can go back to Xfinity next year. And again, he's still young enough. I mean, he's like 30, 31 years old, so he's a little bit older of a driver. But I do think that if he goes back to Xfinity, I do think he has enough time to reassemble himself and go back to Cup. Again, I think he's still young enough to reassemble himself. Again, he hasn't been that great in Cup this year of Woodburns, but again, like I said, the last few weeks, they have been improving overall. So like I said, if I'm Matt DiBenedetto, let's think about maybe going back down to the NASCAR Xfinity Series and running full-time with Kaulig Racing next year. I think that's the team he should go to next year if that possibility comes up. We'll have to wait and see what happens, but there's a chance that Matty D could go to Xfinity Series full-time next year. And okay, so that is it for today's NASCAR News video. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to the channel to get notified when a video does go live on my channel. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Support page on the link description below for that. And comment your thoughts on today's video. Where do you think Matt DiBenedetto ends up next year? Do you think he ends up in the NASCAR Xfinity Series next year, 2022? Or do you think he finds a Cup Series ride for next year? Let me know in the comments below. And do you think if Rick Ware does downsize next year, do you think that they're going to be a much more competitive team? Or do you think they're going to run about as well as they've run this year? Let me know in the comments below. Anyway, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's video. And I'll see you guys next time for some more great and awesome NASCAR content. Take care, everybody.